Hey everyone, it's Amy with Pretty Presets, and I am going to do a quick video on this edit that I showed yesterday. I've gotten a couple questions about how the exposure was able to help the skin tone come out nicer. The photo's a little underexposed, which it's always easier to correct a photo that is underexposed than a photo that is overexposed, because you have more detail there in a photo that is just a little bit underexposed. So the first thing that I did was apply Lily of the Valley because I liked the warm tones that were here, and I knew that once I bumped up the exposure, then those would kind of calm down just a little bit. Actually, before I do the exposure, I'm just going to straighten it out a little bit. You can see how the weeds are kind of off to the side a little bit, and the box here is slanting down. So I'm just going to give that a slight adjustment there, and be done with that. And then I'm going to just increase the exposure, not like that's too much, okay? So you have to find just the right amount that's going to be good for the skin tone and that's going to be good for the background. I have the advantage of having the original edit right here, so I can like look at that and go, are we on the right track? Yeah, we're getting there. The next thing that I did was I used the Skin Smooth brush, because you can see here on her skin that it's a bit uneven, and so some of that is because of the lighting, and I think some of that is just because, you know, she looks like a girl who's probably been outside playing during the summertime, and so she's got you know, parts of her skin that are probably more tan or sunburnt than other parts, especially because she's blonde. We're gonna go through here and we're just going to even out her skin. And I did go through the hair just a little bit there. And I actually did the skin smoothing everywhere. So I did it on her arms as well, because even on her arms, it just looked a little bit uneven and like it could just use the tiniest bit of skin smoothing. So I went along here, and now we're going to go back up here, and I don't need to adjust that at all because she's a little girl. She doesn't need to have like crazy smooth skin. You know, I'm going to go ahead, and for this I'm just going to sharpen her eyes a little bit. So let's do that. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to increase the contrast just a little bit. It doesn't need to be a ton, like that's too much. Like normally when I edit, I'm way over here. Normally my contrast will end up to be, you know, around around the low 30s. But for this, I am going to probably just bring it right about there. And then my clarity, same thing with my clarity. Normally I kind of bump it up a little bit, but for this, because I want a kind of a softer glow, I kind of lowered that just a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here to my yellows and my reds, and I'm going to adjust those just a tiny bit. The yellows I'm going to adjust just to make this a tiny bit less warm. I like warm photos, but I think that's just a little too much. So I'm going to bring over my yellow saturation just a bit. And then my reds, I'm going to lower the red saturation and I'm going to increase the red luminance. And I believe we're looking pretty close to where we were at yesterday. I'm going to increase it now just a tiny little bit, and that's about what we had there yesterday. So really easy edit. Like I said, if your photo is severely underexposed, like say it's like way super dark, then you're not going to have an easy time recovering the details, because then they're just as much lost if your photo is severely underexposed as if you had totally blown the photo out, because then you're going to have huge amounts of grain as you try to recover the photos with your exposure. But when a photo was like this, when it's just a little bit underexposed, that can actually work out to your advantage. I personally overexpose by like a click or two, just because I'm on the brighter image side, and that's just my personal shooting style. So hopefully this helps you, and you can see how, I didn't use a filter or anything on her. I originally did, but I just didn't quite like the way that it worked. Now on the black and white edit, I did use a filter, because with the preset that I was using and with it being a black and white edit, I wanted it to have a little bit of a different look. And so I did apply a filter, because this part of her face is a little bit darker than this part right here. So I used that filter to help balance out the light that was on her face here, but she didn't need that in this photo, I felt. So hopefully you can see by watching this that it's pretty easy to recover using the exposure slider. Just know that you have to do it just little by little, and that's all it takes. So hope you have a great day and go out and make something pretty.